Thank you. Welcome to the Community Preservation Committee meeting, City Council hearing room, Monday, April 8th, 2019 at 6 p.m. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting, may transmit this meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Could I get a roll call of the members?
Yeah. Jim Soul,
Kristen Cantara Oliveira,
James Souza,
Tony Dias,
John Brandt,
so we're missing Charlie Moniz, we're missing Victor Farias, and we're missing John Frank Core, and we're still have a vacancy on the Housing Authority.
I believe Victor said he was going to be here, but a little bit late.
Okay. Okay. Did anyone sign up for citizen input? No. Next item is, can I get a motion to accept the meeting minutes of March 15th, 2019?
I'll
make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, funding hearings for the FY20 proposed projects. The first item is for the Fall River Public Library. This item we obviously had approved at meeting 2 meetings ago, and it went to City Council. They sent it to the Public Works and Transportation Subcommittee, which met, I believe, a week or 2 ago, and in their deliberation they decided that they would send it back to the council for the $375,000, and in that discussion Tony was there with myself, and Tony was gave them his perspective on the project and the cost of the project, and Tony believes it would be more, so they said in the meeting that if the project overran the cost, that the city somehow would find the funds. Right?
Yep, and the other important thing that we made them understand is that this is not a simple roof repair that you would do, that it's actually, because CPA funds are being used, it's a restoration project. So that in itself has pieces that will drive up costs, but one of the things that the city did admit is that the number that they had provided is just an estimate, that they really hadn't done much research or drawings to come up with a number. That
so you're supposed to be a part of the committee coming up with. Didn't we say they wanted you part of the like the liaison on the project?
I didn't hear that.
I thought I did.
Okay, I mean, I offered to help, but if they want my help, I can help.
But I mean, because like we kind of want somebody on every single project.
Oh,
so
I would love to be liaison on that project.
I mean, I would hope that they contact us, and maybe in the city council meeting when they approve it.
Because everybody's got the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things maybe, Sandy, you can remind Mr. Gallagher is that I would like to take a tour of that building, to look at the roof. Yes.
Okay.
And the underside, so if he could schedule a date after 4:30, I'd like to take a look at it, because it's one thing to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll talk to him tomorrow if I see him.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion on the library? Next.
So they're gonna. So that's it. Then the funding is.
Well, it's going to go. It's going back to City Council
Okay.
now, whether they approve it or not.
But I mean, if they approve it, then that's done. We don't have to vote anymore.
No,
right?
we don't.
Okay.
No.
No, we already voted on it.
Yeah. Okay.
The money is there. It's
Yep.
just, I think somebody in the city council has to make the other city councilors aware that this is now a restoration and not just a roof replacement. That because CPA money is being used, that it's based on our rules, not the rules that were provided to them the last time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Are they putting the vents back up?
well,
We didn't even discuss that.
that's not, I think, once they hire an architect, which is the thing that didn't make any sense to me. I know Chris Gallagher indicated that the city had an architect, but in order for you to have an architect, wouldn't they have gone out for an RFP for architectural services?
Should have, yeah.
I don't think that's happened.
I don't think so.
So I think that needs to happen first. And then as part of that process, we would look and see what the RFP states, because now we're involved. We would want to be the committee that decides which architecture firm gets hired, not going to the water board to decide,
Yeah.
like in other projects.
So they would need an RFP if they're gonna use the city architect?
No,
You can't
They
use a
could-
city architect for this project.
they're gonna have to get an architect.
Historical preservation, okay.
They need, well, the city can have an architect, but an architect cannot produce anything unless it has other components like mechanical, electrical, structural, all of those pieces. And they really need to send out an RFP. At least a couple to 3 firms would come before this committee. We interview them, they tell us what they would do for the project. We would select one of them, and we would work with that architect. Now, back to your question regarding those historical events. I think a way to go about doing it is to have them design the roof as closely as possible, not necessarily with tile, but as close as possible. But then put pieces like add alternates, which is you design it to try to get a cost associated with it. So let's say that they designed this roof and it comes in at $300,000, and now we have a bunch of add alternates, and one of the add alternates would be the smokestacks or the chimneys, and that would be $20,000. You would accept that add alternate to include those chimneys as part of the design because we've approved up to $375,000. So that's a good way to try to control costs and try to get a little bit bigger bang for your buck, like the flagpole in the roof. That might be something that in a roof restoration, one, they would have to put the pads to walk to where the flagpole is, but maybe we don't do the flagpole now, but at least the pieces on the roof are there for phase 2 or phase 3, or if now, based on everything that was found in the investigation of this roof, now the library trustees can try to do fundraisers and identify, hey, you know, a flagpole is $12,000. You know, we have this little kitty here for whoever wants to contribute to that. You know, maybe someone will donate it in the memory of somebody. Now we get a flagpole. You know, identify those pieces in reviewing.
Well, it's also in the community compact for next year,
That's right.
so maybe we'll get money out of that.
I understood it was 2021,
I don't.
I thought it was 20.
which was surprising to me because when Kathy came before us, I understood that she said next year, but then at the meeting, Miss Mary Sahadi indicated either 2021 or 2022.
That's what I heard too.
So I was a little surprised that it was that many more years. Because one of my comments that kind of came back to me is I said, well, if you have money next year, and everyone looked at me, what money? There's no money next year. But I had heard it. But I think it's 2021 or 2022.
Oh, I thought it was next year, but I totally could be wrong.
Yeah, I'll check the video.
Okay. Any other comments? The next item, the Fall River Fire Museum. We, Sandy had drafted a letter and sent it to Corporation Council because we wanted them to review their lease agreement to see what the city is responsible for, what the fire museum is responsible for, and we're hoping that they could get it so that, or if they were in agreement that the fire museum had control of doing these restorations that we've approved. Just in the fact, going the route with the city, the project is gonna take a bit longer because they have to follow the RFP process. So that was our question for Corporation Council.
Ken Ledge is here. I don't know. I don't know if he wants to talk on it or not.
Okay, so we were not able to, we sent the letter out to them. They actually just contacted us one day last week. They called Sandy up, and then she called me up. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they wanted to meet in 2 hours, and I was not able to do that, so we didn't get to meet with them. Now, Judge Macy is on vacation for 3 weeks. So, what my thought on that is possibly maybe, can Gary Howiak do anything?
Oh, I'll check with Gary.
So, we can ask him and bring the lease agreement to them and see what his take is on it, yeah. Ken, do you want to speak about anything about this? We're really going to bring it up at the next meeting again, so unless there's something you want to add into it, we have not spoke with Corporation Counsel. I don't know if it's something you want to specifically add into it.
I didn't have anything to add, I was just here to see
Yep.
what was happening and if there was something you needed.
Yeah, so thank you for coming, and like I say, we'll try and get Corporation Counsel to come up with their determination of it, and then we're going to put it back on the next meeting again.
But if Attorney Howiak can't do it, it's gonna have to wait for Mr. Macy, which would be another 3 weeks is what I'm hearing.
Yes,
Okay.
Which will be before our next meeting anyway, right?
maybe,
Yeah,
maybe
Okay.
not.
we can push it to.
It's just going to stay on the agenda until it's resolved, doesn't really matter.
So I wanted to thank you to getting us a copy of the lease agreement. So there is information in here that I think is very important, like the lessor's responsibility, which means what is the city responsible for versus what the fire museum is responsible for. The city is responsible for utilities, mechanical, and electrical systems. They're also responsible for the roof and the property in general. But for me, I see that the city, if they had to get pricing for things, would have to follow the prevailing wage rates
Correct.
for the roof, the mechanical and electrical systems. The other pieces in here identify the fire museum is responsible for, and it makes it clear that you have to pay for all of the costs and permitting. So at least the items that they've identified, I don't see that as requiring prevailing wages for those items.
Okay.
But the roof that we've been talking about, I would really want to see a letter from the city.
Ken, do you want to come down so we,
Yeah.
because
Sure.
I'd like you to introduce yourself.
Certainly.
This way, people at home can see
Sure.
what's going on.
Ken Ledger, Fall River Fire Museum.
So Ken, what I'm saying is, because on the lease agreement, it says that the city is responsible for the roof, but the fire museum is coming before the CPC asking money for this roof. So it would seem to me the proper process that the city would send the fire museum a letter requesting that the fire museum on the city's behalf apply for money for the roof, because the city is the entity that is responsible for the roof.
Okay.
And them asking you to take that on your end, maybe they're saying, because we as a city are not going to be involved in that project, that means that we don't have to do prevailing wages, versus we're asking the fire museum to be the one that does that piece of it at a much lower rate. I
Okay.
guess that's what I'm getting to, if that makes any sense.
It does, but it seems a little complicated
Yeah.
with all of the different parts of the proposal.
Right,
I think
but
that's why-
it's a lease agreement, very clear on what the city owns and what they own.
Well, I think once we get Corporation Counsel person to make a determination on it, maybe they can get a little more clarity on what exactly the city's responsible for.
The roof, mechanical and electrical systems.
But the proposals that for the last year and for this year,
Right.
it's a combination of things.
Correct. So I think our big discussion with Michael at the last meeting is, does the fire museum have to go through the prevailing wage process, which is what the whole meeting that you are going to have. In looking at the lease agreement, the city is responsible for the roof, mechanical, and electrical. So the city would be the responsible entity that would hire contractors to do that work, and they would have to put in an RFP and pay prevailing wages. Everything else would be on the fire museum, because there's language in here that says, you know, you can go ahead and clean and restore and repair just about everything else, and I see that as being very different.
There's,
Wouldn't it be easier just to do like the Vietnam Memorial Wall, the Iwo Jima statue, where they do the project, and when it's finished, they just gift it back to the city?
Well, so.
That way they're in control of everything going on.
But see, that's-
Instead of waiting for the city, while you're doing this, you have more input, it's your project.
But
I
for
think
your
the-
example, there's
I
more.
think the legal issue is the prevailing wages, and it's because we have union contracts, and so that's why it's such a touchy, that's really the crux of the matter, it's the prevailing wages for city jobs and city employees. So, I think that's why it's a real sticking point.
And not to get off subject, only for like 1 minute, my comments on the Vietnam wall is that they are going to build something on a city park. Somebody from the city has to say that's okay to do.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Right.
That's very concerning to me. I need to see a document or a vote from the city council that it's okay on a bicentennial park, or at least a park board, to say that you can do it.
I don't remember picking up on that myself, but the administration clearly showed its support, right? But we need
Right,
the
but-
park board's support as well.
Well, it's different. It's a different fund.
I mean, support in having the city legally vote for something or a lease agreement, wouldn't the Vietnam, wouldn't the Vietnam committee need to have a lease agreement with the city to construct a
Why don't we
80%?
discuss that in this
Yes.
meeting, because.
Anyway,
I don't think they're leasing it, they're just gonna build it and
Yeah.
then gift it,
They're gonna build and gift it, right?
yeah, and then maintain it.
John, as I'm looking at our CPC member assignment projects, you're assigned to the Fire Museum.
Yeah.
Do you want to go up to Corporation Council with Sandy?
Yeah.
Being that you're part of it?
Yeah.
All right, so you can coordinate with her as far as that goes, and that way you can, let us know what's going on with it.
Thursday, what, 10ish, if that's good with you? If it's good with them?
Oh, yeah, I'll find out what Gary's schedule is, and I'll email you.
Okay.
the thing that makes it confusing is what Tony was saying they're responsible for. But then there's another section in here that says the successful proposer of said fire museum must accomplish certain mandated goals outlined by the city, namely that the museum will, and then one part of it, number 4, restore the exterior of the premises as close as possible to its original 1873 appearance. And the exterior includes the roof. So it just it's very confusing the way that it makes
Yeah.
it sound.
Yeah.
well, an exterior elevation is the facade for me, versus a roof is more in plan. So the fire museum has already did the repointing of the brick on the exterior, and I think you're almost complete, just a couple more washings.
Correct.
And you're also looking, I can't remember if it's this application, maybe the next one, to repair some of the windows or restore them.
That's correct.
So,
Mm.
and they have a 66-year lease.
Yes, that's right.
So I don't think they're responsible to do something every single year, because obviously you're working on the interior all the time.
Yeah, no, but that's just part of what it said.
Yeah.
It said restore the exterior of the premises. And I think to most people, the roof would be considered part of the exterior, but it's worded where the city is responsible for the roof.
Well,
So that's where.
But they've
it gets very
identified
confusing.
roof as being a separate item. So
well,
this-
I think when you go talk with Gary or Judge
Maybe we can see
Macy,
if
I would just
Michael
like
can come too,
delineate
Sure.
you know.
what is a part, what.
Can everybody send
Yeah.
comments to me after reading the lease at a question, so we can bring it to
That's a good idea.
Corporation Council's attention? And I'll ask, well, maybe not Charlie right now, but Victor and John as well. And then everybody can get back to me with their comments. This way we can at least bring it up in the
That's a
meeting.
good idea.
Yeah, we're gonna have Lieutenant Michael Hill come to the page,
Yeah, Mike's gonna be there.
this is their lease.
one of the things that I would like Corporation Council to clarify is that this contract is written for the fire museum, and it's very specific that everything is on the fire museum side. So when we talk about building exteriors, half of the building is a different use. So is the city going to be repairing those windows versus the fire museum, all of the windows.
It's quite complicated.
Yeah, break those down for me.
Right, so it would be nice if they would,
And along those lines, when we did the facade with the repointing, we did the entire sides.
exactly.
You know, we haven't done around to wrap around the police side, but the front part, we did the entire front, which included the police side.
The animal control section.
Exactly,
Your cost.
yeah.
And you're talking about, I mean, I'd like to see the front of the windows be the first windows to be restored. Some of those windows would be animal control side again. So when it comes to the RFP process, prevailing wage, I would really like for the city to clarify all of that.
Like I said, I think Sandy had a good idea. Everybody with whatever questions, send to her to compile a list
Or
to ask
do
the
you want
Corporation
him-
Council when they meet.
Do we want to invite him to a meeting, or you want to do it in a meeting outside? Okay, so okay.
John can report to us.
And we can always invite him if he chooses to do that, or if we choose to do that.
Yeah, because that'd be another 3 weeks before our next meeting, so.
No, I'll
Get the
call
ball
Gary
rolling.
tomorrow. Matter of fact, I'll go see him.
Any other discussion?
I'll have some questions, I'll email you.
Good,
Sam.
okay.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Project updates. There's two projects that need extensions that are being worked on by architects. So we just need a vote for the North Burial Ground extension.
I will vote to provide the North Burial Ground an extension.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next,
I'd like to make a comment that some more of the stones at the entrance are falling out.
thank you.
And if someone from maintenance or whatever can pick up those stones
Put 'em
and
in the
put
back
them
with
with
the
the
others.
other stones would be great.
It's a big pile.
And I do have photographs of the wall before the stones fell. So if they want to number them and put them exactly back.
I did contact Michael Keane from Civitex, who is now the architect on this project, and I asked him to attend today, but he was on vacation this week, so I told him that we would move this to the next agenda, and he would come in and discuss it. Obviously, the price has changed, and we can also fund this through
Out of cycle.
cycle funding. So it's not like we have to go, it's not emergency funding, but we can do like an out of cycle funding to compensate for the new price, so. But we can discuss that when he meets with us. Like I say, he's on vacation this week. Our next meeting, we'll put it on, and he'll be in attendance, I believe. So, any other discussion? Next item, Cook Pond Wall. This is also out for bid, but this one also needs an extension.
My only comments on this one is, when we had, forget what that gentleman's name is,
Fine.
Brian Kirk?
Brian Kerr, there was a long discussion about being a portion of Cook Pond near this wall that no one had possession of it, no one legally owned it. And I didn't know if now with the King Philip Mill being owned, if that now includes part of this wall. I would just like to know that this piece.
Well, Sandy and I are meeting with purchasing. I called them this week. We are meeting with them tomorrow to find out exactly where it stands in the purchasing department with this project. So maybe, I don't know what the document looks like
Yeah.
at the moment, but I'll find out tomorrow.
Because I would rather table this one, because I would like to see if that developer would be interested in paying to fix this wall, since it's part of this development.
Well, in the meantime, it'll be easier just to extend it.
Well, we need an extension anyway, as opposed to,
Yeah.
like, I think having an extension,
An extension will allow the city to finally do what it's supposed to do and find a mason to use CPA funds to fix the wall. By not giving the extension and tabling it, we're trying to see if we can get the developer to donate the money.
Yeah, but I think that the wall is part of the superstructure of the roadway. So I don't think it's gonna be,
Do you
I don't
think-
think
think
it's gonna
I
be,
mean, that wall was long.
yeah.
It was all of the Welly Street.
Right.
Yeah.
But would the wall be owned by the developer at this point?
Well, the developer is,
Victor?
so I understood that at one time the city was going to provide the public access
So
from the edge of the water.
Do you want to contact the engineering department and ask them, like, how that stands? Because I would imagine engineering would probably know what was,
I think Brian Kirk has done a lot of work, a lot of research. It'd be great to have him here tell us that this piece that we're talking about, extending it, is far away, not having to do with anything of the King Philip Mill development.
But I think the city is probably still a better contact because the city is gonna know what it's responsible for, more than I think Brian.
I think you bring up some valid points, but I think I'd rather see us for now. I'd like to propose that we grant this extension, and if anything changes as far as the ownership, we change the way it goes. But for now, we just need to grant this extension.
because extension is just to let the process continue, I mean,
Right, but they haven't fixed this wall in 5 years since
I
we've
know
given
that.
them money.
Yeah.
So at what point do we need to penalize them so that they know that they have to start doing projects instead of asking for extensions and extensions and extensions and nothing ever gets done?
I'm just gonna be an optimist here, and,
well, all I'll say about
it's
it,
gonna go
I
through.
spoke with Michael Keane, who
Yeah.
was, again, a new architect on this.
Oh, he's the one that's doing that?
He
Okay.
put the
Then I feel better.
process,
We can vote on it.
Okay, good.
would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, extended.
Do I have a second?
Aye. Second that motion.
So I have a motion and a second on the Cook Pond wall.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, historic district guidelines. At our last meeting, we didn't have the vote on the agenda, so Tony had brought up that he would like to.
The Preservation Society brought up.
What's that?
The Preservation Society, oh,
You brought up that you wanted to make it a emergency funding, I believe.
I think that was,
Yeah, we're just saying that it was the Preservation Society that put in the
Application.
application for it, and after discussion, because we had discussed
Right.
about making emergency funding for it. I think the Historic Commission actually had said no, they were concerned about creating a precedent about emergency requests. Tony did suggest he feels like it is worthy of an emergency funding because it is something that's required by the state, and we're one of the few towns that has a local historic district that doesn't have guidelines in place already.
since
I would have to abstain because even though I didn't create the application, I'm the president of the Preservation Society.
But I think when Stuart was here, we asked about committee members being part of neighborhood groups and other organizations, and the city also gives us non-collusion or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
And I believe it's very clear in that document that says that regardless of what position you are and what organization, as long as there's no monetary benefit to you, that whatever you're voting on benefits the city, then
I know,
absolutely.
that is true, and I am a volunteer director of the Preservation Society, and I'm not funded in any way at all, not compensated in any way. But the laws also say that even if there's an appearance of it, that sometimes it's better to abstain. I'd hate for this to come back and bite me in the proverbial ass. So I'd rather abstain than vote on it myself.
So I'm absolutely in favor of it. Again, at the next Historic District Commission meeting, we have another property owner that is coming before the Historic District Commission because, once again, they don't know the process, they don't know what they can do or can't do because there's no guidelines. And it's very hard having these property owners who voted to be on it, now having to come before a Historic District Commission where we had to have an inspector go stop that person from doing work on this property, especially I think it was repairing a roof or something, and there's the potential for a $300 a day violation because there's no guidelines for them to do work.
Right.
It's a document that's going to help this committee because that document is all based on the Secretary of Interior standards, so We need that document for our next meeting. That document is going to help not only this committee, the Historic District Commission, Historical Commission, ZBA, Planning Board, Building Department.
But I'm still not in favor of an emergency myself, and practically most projects that come through CPA kind of an emergency. Most buildings, most preservation projects are historical preservation projects. It's been neglected for 100 years. Everything's an emergency, really. It's the truth. I mean, everything is really an emergency. So we could just go on and vote emergency, I think, on so many projects than we already do.
I mean, we've
had neglect for over 100 years.
We've had the discussion on what is an emergency and not an emergency so many times.
Yep,
Stuart has came here and basically said, until all of you decide exactly what it is, every project can be an emergency.
Correct.
That's what he said.
That's
To
correct.
me, as the chair of that committee, I can't tell you how stressful it is for the committee members having to tell a property owner what he or she can do when they don't have a guideline. This is a committee that has been voted on and created by the city since 2014. Here we are, 2019, and still nothing. And when we finally get that document to be done, or when that money is available, it's gonna take that firm 6 months to do it. If we wait until May or June, and it does get approved, we're not gonna see that document until January, February.
Just hypothetically, why was this proposal not done last year then? You said it's been the local historic district has
Right.
been established since 2014. We're in 2000, and I'm not
Yeah.
making fun of everyone and
No.
saying, but I mean, why wasn't it done 2 years ago if it was that important, or 3 years ago if it was that important?
So,
I'm just playing the devil advocate here.
No, you can definitely ask the question. So part of the process of having a new committee is trying to understand what the ordinance and what are the rules and regulations and things that you need to do. So that committee has been for years working hard, setting standards, setting fees, setting rules, setting regulations, setting a whole lot of things. We've done everything that we can that hasn't required money. This component requires money. Someone needs to create this, just like the
understand that.
Historical Commission, the Historic District Commission is not funded.
But if the proposal came through last year, we could have voted on it last year.
Okay.
Can I say my piece? I am the chair of the Historical Commission. I'm also on the Historic District Commission. And I'm sorry, but I disagree with this being an emergency. I understand that we need these things, but we can find this information. It may take a little bit more work right now to get the information to people, but saying that people in the district don't know that they're not supposed to be doing these things, you don't need guidelines to tell them that. They know, they're in the district and they're aware that they're not supposed to be working on their properties. We have the ability to look up the information and tell them exactly what they need to know. So granted, we do need this book. I wholeheartedly support the fact that we need this guidelines to happen, but I don't see it as an emergency right now. I don't feel comfortable putting it through as an emergency.
So, Kristen, what you're saying is that whatever the Historic District Commission decides, each individual member, they will let that person know after we've sent the building inspector to their property, told them, stop doing what you're doing something wrong, and you're coming to the next meeting. That is very unfair for all of those property owners. They need to have a document that tells them exactly what they can and they can't do.
But we haven't had that all this time, Tony.
That's not an excuse.
But it's not an emergency either, because we've had it come up.
Right.
We had somebody come before the commission.
Right.
And you explained to them what needed to be done. The fact is, they shouldn't be trying to do work on their property in the first place until they come before the commission, and they know that.
So, Kristen, this is how it will translate. That person comes before us and we say, we've had other property owners before, we've been very nice and we haven't fined them. I'm going to stop fining you, okay? And the next person is going to get fined, and everybody's going to get fined from now on. And now what you've created is you've created an atmosphere where people say, a lot of red tape, preservation, you don't want to own a property that's
Why-
historical.
Why do you have to find them? Why can't we do
Because
what
that's
we've
what
been
the
doing?
regulation
But
says.
why can't we do what we've been doing all along? You send out a letter to them saying, you cannot be working, you cannot be doing any work until you come before the committee. And then they just don't do the work, they come before the committee, and then that's when they find out, okay, this is what you need to do, and we can walk you through it until we have the guidelines. That's how it should work. The person that was doing work when the building inspector had to go out should not have been doing that work in the first place.
If this
It has nothing to do with the guidelines.
If this project goes through the regular funding route without an emergency, when are the funds gonna be available to start the process? July,
As soon as we get the appropriation order,
which is usually when?
depends on the city council. Last year it was
August.
September, I think.
But I mean, do you think it
But we can
might,
do it, yeah, I mean, we can.
possibly
sit with
July,
Jen.
August?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
You're
if we
talking
start
3 months from now.
deliberating, we
So-
can.
Okay, if we vote it as an emergency today, it goes to the city council. The city council votes on that project in April,
Yeah,
and then the money becomes available
I understand that,
not in June or July.
yeah.
But it's not an emergency. An emergency is
Kristen,
your roof is falling.
As the
and
chair of the Historic District Commission, I'm saying it's an emergency.
Okay,
That's fine, and that's
So-
your opinion, but as the
Okay.
chair of the historical commission, I'm saying it's not an emergency.
Okay, but it's not a historical commission issue, it's a historic district
I'm
commission
the
issue.
vice chair of the historic district commission, and I still
Thank you.
don't see it as
Well,
an emergency.
So,
I make a motion that we vote to fund this as a emergency application.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
And one
it's still-
abstention? Vote fails, 3 to
Okay,
2.
so, I resign as of July
You don't have to bring
1
that
of
up now.
this year.
Okay,
I'm just done.
okay.
Done.
Preservation consultant.
We reviewed this in subcommittee, and we actually leaned back toward the need for an attorney, probably more than a preservation consultant, because we reviewed the issues that seemed to be sticking. It wasn't so much about what preservation priorities there really were. It was still about the process of having our contracts created and processed and filed adequately and accurately and legally. So in the short term, we're kind of feeling like it's really an attorney that we need
So
more
we
than
need
a
to go back to
preservationist.
getting an attorney. So we had asked, so do we want to put a job request out to get an attorney? Is that what we think we should do?
Yeah, I think that would be our recommendation to the committee.
Say, you had written up a job request at one point, correct?
And this isn't a full-time position,
So
this
we
isn't
can
even a part-time.
Resurrect that
consultant.
job request?
Then as needed, PRN.
Right, so once a year, when, as the contracts come out, they're done, we'd be able to have an attorney who specialized in this process.
Do you want to run an ad? You want me to look into places to run ads, go to the law school, Roger Williams, Southern New England, New England School of Law? Do you want me to go
Well,
to those
I mean,
places?
Just in general, I mean, where in the city hall would somebody know where our best effort to find someone would be? I mean, when people in government center
You know,
look for.
we can post at the Register of Deeds. Attorneys go in there all the time, they might want some consultant work, Register of Deeds.
Can we just ask like someone in the Corporation Council department, like where would be a good spot? I mean,
Yeah,
If you're meeting with Gary Howie, I asked him.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think maybe they would have a better idea of where we could post an ad that's more effective.
I might even suggest that worthwhile calling Laurie in New Bedford, because
oh, yeah, right.
they're in this process in New Bedford with their CPA as well.
I'll ask her, I'll connect with her. Or I'll reach out.
Thank you. Any other discussion? The next meeting, we need to set up. The next meeting, I think we'll need to, we should discuss at least all of the projects from this year, because we've never really all sat down collectively and deliberated the projects amongst ourselves, so I think that would be a good idea to go through them all. And then also, I'd like to add back on to these, the project updates that we didn't get resolutions to today in any way, so.
You wanna discuss all of them at one meeting? Isn't that
Um,
kind of a lot in one meeting?
Well, does anybody want to split them in 2 meetings or have them all together, or? I mean, there's what, 20?
Oh, 20.
I think we could, we don't have to go through it in detail so much as to bring ourselves up to speed
But
with
it's
where
just
we
to
are.
give everybody a chance to like voice their opinion on things they think good, bad, or indifferent about the project, and it's obvious, it's not a vote, it's just.
No, but it still might be a lot of discussion
It could be.
for 20.
Then we'll just put the others on the next meeting.
Yeah, we,
When we
maybe
don't finish,
do,
we'll just
maybe
continue.
do half and half.
Do you wanna do half and half? Like half in one meeting? Like when should we have, I mean, time's slightly ticking towards the budget season, so like sooner than later would be better. So is it, like, is like a Monday's the best day, like today's obviously Monday, like the 22nd in 2 weeks, we'll do like the first half of the projects?
Sounds good to me.
And then we can add these other things onto it.
Okay.
So the 22nd?
Want me to check on the 29th as well?
So we'll also, might as well schedule the other meeting, because we're gonna need another one to finish the other half of the projects.
The following Monday, and this way I can book the room if it's available.
The 29th,
Yeah.
is that a good date too? So we'll do 2 weeks in a row?
That's fine with me.
Okay, so it'll be, April 22nd will be the first half of the projects, 29th will be the second half of the projects, and then we'll also have the project updates.
Want me to do public one time, privates another time? This way,
That sounds good,
public and private.
yeah. Anything else anybody wants to add to the agenda? Any other comments or questions? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.